Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Emix Radio. This is my co-host, Jason Morales.
What's going on, everybody?
And today we're going to be talking about LA. That's right. So, we're going to talk about the best 20 places to visit in LA for tourism. And we're going to discuss what we visited, and we'll see what you guys think about it. So, Jason, talk to me. Where have you been to in LA that has just completely wowed you?
There's been a lot of places. That's what I love. That's one of the things I love about LA. There's definitely a lot of tourist, attractions that can blow you away. And there's a lot of, I think, in any major metropolitan city, obviously as LA is, you're gonna find some hidden gems. So I think it's always cool to find neat little things. I mean, to be honest with me, I'm not really ashamed to admit it. I am definitely a fan of Disneyland. I know a lot of people, they don't like it. They don't like the crowds. It's very gimmicky and hokey and corporate. But there's something that resonates with me about that ever since I was a kid. That I still love it. And I take my kids now and I love it. And within the park itself, you find little hidden gems, things that kind of surprise you from time to time. If it's just the customer service, or if it's the little secret pathway, or a hidden Mickey Mouse, or something silly like that.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about that. I've heard there's a whole bunch of hidden gems. Like there's even they play certain shadows to make a Mickey head and do things like that. And you're supposed to find them and post them and do all these things.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
No, I have to tell you, in order to defend myself in my honor, I think a little bit, there are definitely some, I would say, fanatics out there. I enjoy the park. It makes me feel good. Like I said, it definitely reminds me of my childhood, and it's a lot of fun. But there are some people out there who definitely take it to the extreme, and they go, all the time, and they know all of these little in and outs of the park and stuff like that. So I don't know that much. I'm not claiming to be an expert, or I'm not a Mouseketeer or something like that. But I do enjoy it. One of the things for me that really surprises me, or some of the gems, are the food places in and within LA and the surrounding area. I'm by no means a foodie. I don't take it to where I have to find these cool, unique places. But I definitely do enjoy when I could find a spot that's something different, maybe something off of the beaten path, and it's a lot of fun. One place particularly I found recently is actually in the downtown area. It's off of 4th and Central, I think, just kind of like that general area. I don't know the exact cross street. And the name sounds kind of funny. It's called Worst Cooch. And it definitely has a funny sounding name to it. But the worst is for bratwurst. So the place is a hot dog place.
Okay.
So quick background story on how I found this. My sister-in-law was graduating from USC, and we were going out for dinner afterwards. USC's in the downtown area right there on Figueroa, and she wanted to go out to eat, and we were trying to find something that would appease everybody. She said, "Oh, there's this hot dog place downtown." So I said, "Great, I've got my kids with me. We're gonna go have hot dogs. Perfect, right? I don't have to really worry about them." And so we walk in the place, and it's definitely off the beaten path. I mean, the area it's in, there's definitely a lot of graffiti art or tagging, however you want to look at it or label it. And so it's definitely not Beverly Hills. I will say that, but nice enough. And then you walk in the place, and it's not what you expect at all. Very modern, lots of wood, modern music. And so you look at the menu, and they've got all these exotic different kinds of hot dogs or bratwurst or sausages or whatever. I ended up getting a sausage made of duck meat with jalapenos in it. And so it was just a great little spot, but it was nice. I mean, you ordered, you went down, you had your hot dog and your fries, and there were little other nuances about it that I'll let the viewers, go and experience it if they want to check it out themselves. But that's one of the definitely those hidden gems that I really like within the city, is those little food places.
Have you ever been to Pink's Hot Dogs?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So I'll say this: I haven't been to the original Pink's in Hollywood, but I've been to Pink's. They have a Pink's at Knott's Berry Farm, and I've been there. I'm sure it's not the same. I'm sure it's close or similar. They have a similar menu, but I'm sure it's not the same as going to Pink's in Hollywood. So no, I have not. Have you?
I have been there, and the hot dogs are beyond delicious. So,
Are they?
Yeah, and then they have all these mixtures of different types of hot dogs. Like every time a celebrity goes there, they create a different hot dog for that particular celebrity, and then they put it on their menu.
Okay.
So every time you go to Pink's Hot Dogs, you could get the John Wayne hot dog or different type of hot dogs. And they're just beyond delicious. So I was very curious to find out if you would compare Cooch's.
Worst Cooch.
Worst Cooch.
And don't ask me how to spell it. I know it sounds funny. Even when I said, really? Like, that's what it is. But that's what it is. And it's definitely a great spot. Yeah. And then, speaking of, and then to one of the other things that's a nice little gem about this place, because I know last week we were talking about alcohol, and I know you've been trying alcohol lately, something that's been new to you. And this place has a lot of, I don't want to say craft beers, but they're imported beers. So they're from Belgium, Germany, lots of, European places. And I found a beer. It is the best beer I've ever had in my life. And I'm not exaggerating. Ever since then, all other beer doesn't taste the same.
Wow.
It just doesn't measure up. And I know you're not a beer guy.
I'm not.
Which is okay. But I think I'm going to have to buy you a bottle of this beer. It's that good. I think you might enjoy it.
I'm very curious. Well, what's the name of the beer?
It's called St. Bernardus. And there's several different types of St. Bernardus. This one is called the ABT12. I don't know what the ABT stands for. I'm not enough of a beer connoisseur to know, the ins and outs. I know IPA is for Indian Pale Ale, but that's about, all I know. But it's just a really fantastic beer. It's been kind of hard to find, but I think I found it at a couple of certain retailers. I don't want to give any plugs out there for the places, but it can be found. But I think I'll definitely have to let you try. You may enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm always willing to try it. Definitely. Okay, so we talked about Disneyland. We talked about two different hot dog places. I wanted to ask you this. What do you think is better? A very known place for tourism or a very hidden gem type of place? For example, Disneyland, every time a tourist comes to LA, they're going to go to Disneyland.
Right.
That's just a thing.
Right.
Do you think it qualifies as a better place to go to, or would you prefer going to those little hidden places?
I personally like both. I can say I'm not a world-renowned traveler, but I have been to different parts of this country, and I could say I like both. I think there's definitely a lot of value. I mean, the touristy places, there's definitely a reason that they're touristy. They have their attractions about them, and I don't mean attractions in the sense of rides, but they do have their features that make them attractive. That's why people go to them. That's why they're big tourist spots. So I think there's definitely something to those, and I think if you don't go to see those very touristy things, you're definitely going to be missing out on something. But the hidden gems are definitely cool too, because it's a unique experience. It's something not everybody gets to experience, and I think it's good to I think it's good to have a little bit of mix of both. So I would say they definitely hold equal weight. The hidden gems is not something you can maybe necessarily share with other people in their experiences, but the touristy ones you definitely can. So I think there's definitely pros and cons.
Some balance to be found there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one of the things that I love about LA. LA has so much to offer. You could go to the beach, you could go to the mountains, you could go, to the theaters, whatever you want to do, you could find it in LA. Mm-hmm. But one of the places that I want to really throw out there, and I think it's definitely in our top 10, because we have a top 10. And I'm only saying this because I'm wearing the shirt today. Mexico won, everyone. So
that's
congratulations.
Right.
That's
dominated.
Right,
despite the refs, I will say, we were talking about earlier. Despite the refs, they still won. They pulled out a good game.
But Plaza Alameda, have you been there? Actually, yeah, no, we went. When did we go? I know. Is
it on Olvera Street?
Yes.
Yes,
Street.
We did go. Yeah. We went on a double date. I do remember that. We went. And that's great spot.
I think that place is first of all very touristy, and it's also a hidden gem.
Definitely.
Because you have to kind of know what's in there to to order or whatnot.
Well, I think Olvera Street has a lot to offer in general, and it is one of those historic LA places. The history behind it is very old. All those buildings are, I think, mostly original, or not necessarily original, but there is a lot of history there. So but not everybody. That's not a hot touristy spot, though. I mean, you have to kind of be in the know, I think, to go there.
Right. And then obviously that one goes out for all the Mexicans out there because it's just a completely Mexican place. Actually, I was looking at some pictures on Facebook, and for the Mexico game, that place was just...
Oh, I did. Yeah, I saw that. It was packed.
It was beyond packed. But yeah, okay, so moving on. We mentioned 4 different places. Now, what about the outdoorsy places? What are your favorite places in LA when it comes to the
outdoors? There's a lot of stuff to offer. I love the beach. I love to take my kids to the beach, and the beach, I think, is something that we definitely, as not necessarily Angelinos, but as Californians in general, definitely take for granted.
Oh, yeah.
One of the reasons, I know we had talked earlier in the week, I wanted to bring up the topic of LA. I do have a lot of pride for LA. I love the city here. I love what it represents. I don't know all the history, but I know some of the history, and I love it. And one of the things... when I actually was able to put things in perspective as far as being in LA, was one of the first times I actually got out of California. Las Vegas. It's kind of like, LA East a little bit,
right?
So I went my summer after my senior year of high school. I went to visit my uncle had moved for a job to northern Alabama, on the suburbs, the outskirts of Montgomery. So this is like northern Alabama, but I mean, nevertheless, I mean, this is the South, and some of the first questions people asked me, friends of my cousins, they asked me was, "Oh, you're from California? Do you go to the beach?" And that was their first question. But these are people who have never seen the beach before in their lives. And so to them, I mean, it's huge. It's bigger than they can imagine. And I will say, having crossed the Mississippi, that's a damn big river. I mean, you think of a river. We don't have rivers in Southern California. We have the LA River made of concrete,
right?
And
it's small.
I mean, this thing was just massive. So coming back to my point I was making, I think the beach. I love the beach, outdoors, even the riverbeds. I don't want to say an avid bike rider. I used to ride my bike like 4 or 5 days a week, not as much anymore. But I do love the bike trails that are along the riverbeds. Hiking. I don't go hiking as much anymore because I have kids, but there's a lot of great trails, easy ones, tough ones within Southern California. We have the San Gabriel Mountains that are close by, and not even necessarily there. There's a lot of just nice hidden. Not necessarily, they may be hidden, but you have to find them. You have to be in the know and wanting to look for them to find trails. But there's a lot of great places to look, and hiking is something I definitely enjoy. And as my kids are getting a little bit older now, it's something I'm able to enjoy a little bit more. And believe it or not, there are actually waterfalls in LA. I mean, they're technically LA County, but there's cool waterfalls that you can go and see. So those are some of the things off the beaten path that I like.
Yeah, that's funny that you mentioned that, because some of the members of the ministry that I am part of, they go to different hiking events, and they've been talking about the waterfalls, and I'm like, what? Waterfalls in LA? But there it is, proof again that we have everything in LA.
We barely have water. We're in a drought, but we've got waterfalls.
We've got waterfalls. And there's a hiking place. It's Griffith Park.
Right.
I hear about it all the time, and I have, I've been to the observatory,
okay,
which is in Griffith Park,
right.
And I've been to a museum. I've never been to those hiking trails. Have you participated?
I have. I've been once. I would say really once, and it's nice. I mean, Griffith Park definitely has a lot to offer. It's big. The trail we went on, I don't know if it was very long. It just kind of went a little bit. It is. I don't know. To me, it was okay. There's definitely a lot of indigenous plants and stuff like that. So, you do get a sense of being, away from the city. Not one of the better trails I've been on, but it's still nice and it's fun to go to. Griffith Park in general, it's kind of historic.
I think one of the things that scares me about hiking, because, I keep saying I'm going to go, and I just never end up going, is the fact that you hear in the news all the time of a mountain lion ate some person.
Right.
And it's like, I don't want to get eaten by a mountain lion.
Nor do I. Nor do I. Especially with kids, it's definitely something I'm concerned about. If you're able to research online, there's definitely times, when there's severe drought, when there's probably certain times of year when food gets a little scarce, and that's when they'll come around a little bit. And then there's certain trails too in certain areas where there are actually mountain lions that inhabit that area. But some people are stubborn. They say, well, I'm not going to let some mountain lion stop me. I'm not scared. I can, but I'm not going to take that chance. There are definitely lots of trails and lots of good places to check out that don't, have... there's wildlife, don't get me wrong. You do take a chance of mountain lions. But if you go to a place that's a little more heavily populated, you should be in good shape because there's a lot of people around there to help and support. But I know... For a lot of hikers, they like to go off the beaten path. They want to be able to find that unique trail that nobody's been on, or they could say, oh, yeah, they want to be a trailblazer, like an old-time pioneer. There's still, I think that that attitude that kind of helped establish and settle us here in Southern California is definitely still alive. There's definitely a lot of people. Some people may call it arrogance, but I think it's great. But you got to realize you're taking a risk. High risk, high reward. Maybe I don't know.
There are those adrenaline junkies.
Yeah.
I consider myself a little bit of an adrenaline junkie, but it has to be safe adrenaline.
Okay.
So I guess that maybe is an ironic statement, but I love places like Six Flags.
Right.
Six Flags I'm just a big fan of. I think I'd be willing to skydive.
Okay.
I'd be willing to do that. But the whole putting yourself in a situation where it's not measured safety. That's what scares me. Like we were talking about mountain lions. You might say there's no measured safety when it comes to skydiving, but actually there kind of is.
Absolutely. Murphy's Law. Anything can happen, right?
Exactly.
I had something like that recently. It's not really related to California, but just because you're talking about, adrenaline junkie, and I definitely had my adrenaline pumping last week for work. I had to go to a site, and in my particular line of work, I deal with generator power equipment, and there were 2 generators on the roof of this building. And the only way to go up there was what's called a suicide ladder. I don't know if you're familiar with the suicide ladder.
Maybe.
But essentially what it is it's 2 pieces of metal and rungs to step on the side of a building. And so I had to climb it, and this building is probably about 30 feet up in the air.
Oh, geez.
And I love roller coasters like you. And in that sense, I'm not afraid of heights because I'm secured in and I'm safe. But when I'm just holding on and my feet and hanging off the side of a building 25, 30 feet up in the air, I'm not going to BS you. I got a little scared. So my adrenaline was definitely going. So that was definitely not near any kind of hiking persona per se, but it was definitely an adrenaline rush. And I was able to make it safely, but I got to admit I was scared.
Yeah, I bet, man. Actually, I had a very similar situation. I would say a couple of years ago, there was, I work for a roofing contractor,
right?
And somebody had cut a internet cable on the roof of a commercial building, and commercial buildings are beyond tall,
right?
And in order for me to go patch up that cable, I had to climb up their ladder, and their ladder is sitting on the back of a truck.
Okay,
and it's super high. How could I explain it? They have ropes that you're supposed to tie around yourself.
Okay.
Because that's how they
safe,
do it.
right?
And I'm scared of heights, so I'm over there climbing this ladder, and they're all all the roofing people are just laughing at me. But I made it up there, so it was cool. So
let me ask you: are you? And I don't know, you are or are not a native Angelino? Were you born and raised here?
I was born and raised in Mexico, so no, I am not.
Okay, so you definitely have a different perspective of LA. Now when did you move here to LA?
I was 8 years old, so
8 years old.
I was pretty small, but I do remember a lot of Mexico, so I definitely, I can see the differences.
So do you remember, at least when you first came here, other than the language, I think that's pretty obvious. What was a big culture shock for you when you first came to LA from Mexico?
That's a tough one because when I first came to the United States, in school everyone spoke Spanish, so
Okay.
there's just a lot of Hispanics.
Okay.
But well, you said not the language, huh? That's a good question. Seeing white people, I think seeing white people was a shocker, you know,
right.
and seeing them not being able to speak Spanish, not speak my language.
Because there's definitely a lot of quote unquote, at least white-looking people in Mexico. I mean, that was one of the things, the first thing that shocked me. The first time I saw a novella, I was like, what the hell are all these white people doing speaking Spanish? You know, but then what I didn't know was that predominantly in central and southern Mexico, I mean, they're predominantly fair-skinned, you know, green-eyed, blue eyes. You know, they look like what you would interpret as in your average Caucasian for Southern California, but they're actually Mexican. That was definitely something that shocked me when I first saw that.
Yeah, there is, you know, but seeing them and not being able to speak the same language, you know, like my biggest, the first thing I learned how to say was no English, no English.
No hablo.
No hablo English, and you know that was cool, but. You know, once again, being in it was the city of Southgate.
Okay.
You know, most everyone spoke Spanish.
Just down the street from where we are now.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so going back to the top 10 places of LA, we talked about the food, we talked about the theme parks, and I want to talk about the music.
Okay.
When it comes to music, and the reason I mention music is because LA is so culturally welcoming to every single culture. What do you think stands out for you when it comes to music?
Well, what stands out to me as far as music is concerned is just the rich diversity. I mean, you have a lot of amazing bands here in LA. I mean, from every genre. I mean, maybe not folk and country so much, but you do still definitely have those people who have that kind of Southern spirit. But I mean, you talk about electronic, you know, dance, hip hop, rock. All, you know, and then everything, all the subgenres of all those, you know, major categories. There are, you know, a lot of great places. I've been to some small clubs, some small venues, be it the Whiskey on Sunset, which, you know, is a classic place, the Rainbow Room. I've been to the Wiltern, and then I've been to the larger venues like the Hollywood Bowl. I haven't been to the Greek Theater, but I've heard it's very similar to the Hollywood Bowl. But there's just great places, and the fact that, you know, LA is a desirable place, especially for touring artists. I mean, everybody comes here. I mean, there's probably not a weekend where you can't see a major headliner in a show around here, and that's great. And I think because it definitely plays to people with all different kinds of joys, you know, in music. And I don't know if it's LA itself, but there's definitely a very anti-mainstream. And it's probably been here, you know, since forever, but, you know, to not be a top 40 hit. So you definitely have, you know, I don't necessarily want to call it an anarchist movement per se, but there's definitely a desire for people to not be of the cultural or pop norm as far as music is concerned. So because of that, there's just a huge variety and array of music, and I love all of it. I love all different kinds of music. I don't think any particular kind of music is, you know, less significant than another. But I mean, as far as me, if I had to pick a top venue for me, I'll say this: it will depend on what kind of show I'm seeing. For a hip hop show, I've been to quite a few hip hop shows, and I do like the smaller venues better. The House of Blues, the Whiskey, you know, those smaller venues like that, because it's a little more intimate. I mean, you just have, you know, a guy up there with a microphone, a DJ with 2 turntables, you know, and that's about it.
And you start thinking of 8 Mile.
Right, you know, you just ready to bust a battle rap, but as far as the you know, the rock shows are concerned, those small ones are cool too. But I definitely don't mind seeing a rock show at a larger place like the Hollywood Bowl. Great venue there, great acoustics. I've seen shows like at the Staples Center and the Honda Center now, which used to be the Pond. Don't particularly care for the acoustics or the sound in there. Definitely not as good. But you being a DJ yourself, you know, I know you're within the music scene. I mean, I don't know if you're discovering new artists or anything, or if you're just sticking to, you know, the gigs that you're doing, but what do you enjoy about the musical scene in LA?
You know what? I think the best thing about LA is that, it, like you said, it's so welcoming to all kinds of genres of music, all kinds of people. So the thing that I enjoy the most is the free shows.
Oh, yeah.
because that gives me an idea of the talent that's out there. Like I've heard some free shows that are just completely amazing. You know, I've been to the Staples Center, you know, to watch, you know, paid artists that make a lot of money. And,
Right.
You know, I think I watched John Legend once.
Okay.
And oh my God, what was her name? She does that song, Sound Operator.
Smooth Operator?
Smooth Operator.
Sade?
Sade.
Oh, Sade
Yeah.
is great, yeah.
Saw her at the Staples Center.
Yeah.
And, you know, amazing artists. I'm not taking anything away from either of them, you know, but they already have it. You know, they already have the fame. And
Right.
then when you're able to see the same style of performance from a beginner, that's what, to me, those are my favorite ones, you know, because you get to see, hey, I saw that person before they became famous.
Right.
So, and, you know, I've been able to see that at the Grove, and I think it's called the Grove in
Anaheim?
No, I'm sorry. That it's in Beverly Hills.
Beverly Hills.
Yeah, is it the Grove? There's a farmers market.
I can't think of it.
Okay, well,
I haven't been, so.
I'm calling it the Grove. Universal City Walk.
Okay, yeah.
You know, downtown Disney, which downtown Disney is no longer part of LA, right? That's not LA County.
It's Anaheim, but I mean, it's still, I mean,
kind
it's,
of LA.
Yeah.
Close to LA.
LA South.
For sure. LA is the capital of California, so.
Absolutely. No doubt about it.
And you know, those are the type of shows that just get to me when I can see artists that are at the same level of famous artists, and then just trying their hardest to, you know, get their name out there.
Now, do you think, and I don't mean to get too much off the topic, but do you think artists lose their passion as they become more, as they get recognized, as they become more famous and more popular? Do you think because they become maybe accustomed to a different lifestyle that they maybe lose some of that passion? Or do you think more of them are able to find a way to channel their inner spirit and keep it going? I mean, especially, you know, I obviously being a DJ, you know, you listen to all different types of genres, you hear different artists from different spectrums. I mean, what's your take on that?
That's an interesting question, because I think, you know, it goes both ways. There are artists who just, you know, they have the money and that's what they were after.
Right.
And once they have the money, they just kind of lose their creativity. You know,
Right.
They're no longer hustling. And then there's artists who do it with soul, and they have the money and they keep their fire. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm sure, you know, you could agree with me on this one. You know, Tupac was one of the best rappers of our time. Absolutely. And even when he made tons and tons of money, like, I mean, he released records way after he was dead.
Right. That
were just as amazing as was some of his first records.
Definitely.
You know, artists today that I can kind of relate to Tupac is, you know, Eminem.
Right.
Eminem is an artist that, you know, he keeps his level of creativity, even though it's kind of, you know, gone down a little bit. Right. You know, but after releasing so many albums, you know, you kind of have to.
I think he's starting to make a comeback. I definitely, you know, in hindsight, kind of seeing where he, you know, I think he kind of peaked, and then, you know, personal issues, drug issues came down a little bit. And I think he's kind of on his way back up. So, you know, I've always been a fan of his, so I hope he continues with it.
Yeah, one of the main things I really like about Eminem and Tupac was when they were challenged. Oh man, their responses were just.
The battle raps or the diss tracks.
Yeah.
It just, yeah, I mean, unbelievable. And you definitely don't want to tussle with those guys when it comes to a rap battle. I mean, that absolutely.
Yeah, I think that makes rap, you know, the challenge. Because rap was built on, well, the history of rap, it was built on hustling.
Right.
You know, nowadays you hear a rap song, it's all about girls, money, and more girls. And you know, that's just not the point of rap. The point of rap was like the hustle.
Right. It was just, to display your skills on the mic, your ability to a free verse, and to freestyle. And yeah, absolutely agree. Speaking of that, you know, you're talking about, you know, the rappers, they get caught up in, you know, the money, the jewelry, the this and that. I mean, let's face it. A lot of people look at LA as being a very plastic place, you know, very fake, very, you know, very big on, cosmetic surgery, very big on fancy cars, especially when you get to the west side of LA, Beverly Hills, Westwood, Santa Monica, those areas. Do you find yourself, what do you think about that subculture of LA? Do you think that there's a bit of arrogance there? Do you think they're just other people that maybe they're misunderstood? I mean, do you have much run-ins with that in your business, or what is your take on kind of people's view of the plastic LA?
Well, I'm 29 years old and I have Botox on my face already. And you know what? That's a good question, because you never know who's real anymore, and I think that's what gets to me. You know, girls are looking younger and younger and younger, and you just never know.
Right.
You never know when it comes to, you know, their body parts. I'll leave it at that, and you know, everything's very exposed.
Right.
You just never know what's real, and I think that's a very sad thing in our society. You know, I've always been a big fan of natural beauty. Natural beauty has been, like, if I look at a girl and I see that she's beautiful, just naturally, like without makeup and everything,
right?
That's just, you know, the best type of girl.
The reason I married my wife. One of those things, you know, even when she thinks she's her worst first thing in the morning, to me, I'm just like, wow. So that's one. Yeah, I absolutely get you there.
So when I see superficial women out there, you know, it's just nah, it's not for me. You know, but LA is for me though, because I love the lifestyle. I love the, you know, the hustle.
Right.
You know, if you were to live this life in a small town country, like, I think I'd be so bored.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work out, you know.
Now, have you been or visited a small town or spent any significant amount of time in a small town outside of LA? I mean, let's exclude, I guess, your original where you came from in Mexico, but I guess since being here and living here in LA, I mean, have you had a chance to experience small town culture, something like that, outside of LA?
Well, Mexico City is definitely not a small.
I didn't know. So you're originally from Mexico City?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure what part, so I didn't know.
No, for sure. They're, you know, super beyond busy.
Oh, definitely.
But I have DJ'd in places. You know, I've been to Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
I've DJ'd in Arroyo Grande, which is up north.
Right.
And the thing that drives me insane every time I go out and DJ, you know, in far places, is trying to go somewhere at midnight and everything's closed.
Right. No doubt, right?
You know, I went to a Starbucks once in Arroyo Grande, and I know
exactly where that is.
Oh, really?
Because there's a car dealership there. I used to be a vendor for that car dealership. It's like between San Luis Obispo and Santa Barbara, kind of. I don't want to say quite halfway, but a little bit more north of there, kind of by Delano.
Yeah.
See, I know the area.
And I was just craving Starbucks. I was in my hotel room, you know, and I was just craving Starbucks. It was like, I think 10 at night. And I went and looked everywhere, and I couldn't find a freaking
Nothing was
Starbucks.
open.
Nothing was open.
Unbelievable.
Like, what's going on?
Right.
So yeah, no, I don't like that lifestyle. I need to be able to do something. I'm a very, you know, active individual.
Especially you. I know you're a night owl, so I imagine things being closed early, it definitely puts a hindrance on your lifestyle.
Okay, here's another question that is important to this topic.
Okay.
The language when it comes to Los Angeles.
Okay.
As we know, the United States does not have an official language. You know,
right.
There's, you know, it's English.
Technically.
Right.
Right.
But I've heard a lot of statements from different types of people that say, oh, if you're in this country, you should learn English, which I agree. But what's your take on that? Do you think that LA, especially being in LA, multicultural place, should it be very open to all kinds of languages, or you think it should be an established language?
Well, I think absolutely. I mean, we are an international hub. I mean, there's no getting around that. We are very much a mestizo or a mixing pot of a culture here in Los Angeles, and I love that about it. That's what I love living here. I love the fact that I could go to Little Tokyo, Chinatown. You know, you go to all these different places and experience these different cultures. I think within those. I don't want to say sub-cities. I can't think of the right word for it. But within these subcultures within the LA area, I mean, I think it's definitely very important for non-indigenous people of America or LA to, I think, retain part of their culture. Culture is very important. It helps us identify with who we are as people, where we come from. So I think it's definitely important to help preserve the language. However, I do think that if you were going to make a living here, survive here, get a job, do all these things that you want to, and if you want to be a citizen of this country, I don't want to say it was established on an English language, because I definitely, having Native American roots, I mean, that is where this country was established. But as far as, modern times, I mean, it was basically developed as an English-speaking country. So being that, I'm of the perspective of, if I go to Spain, Italy, Tokyo, Russia, I want to at least be able to communicate basic things, like to ask for help, or at least be able to ask people, do you speak English in their native language? Because I think that to me, I don't want to be a handicap. I don't want to be handicapped. I don't want people to feel like they have to. And this, I think may just completely be my perspective. But for me, I don't want somebody to pity me or to, I don't want to feel handicapped, basically being in another country by not being able to speak the language. I mean, if you're in a situation where you're in a plane crash and you drop in the middle of somewhere, that's different. But if you're going into another country somewhere to make a living, to get a job because you have an opportunity, it could be anywhere. There's definitely a lot of LA transplants that go to all different parts of the country for job opportunities or what have you. And I think that you absolutely should be able to speak the native language there, or at least make an effort to continue to learn in order to communicate and to be a part of that culture. But at the same time, still retain your culture by continuing to speak English. So I think, so I'm kind of on both sides. I do definitely think language and culture is important, and you should try to retain it. But at the same time, you should, I don't want to say sell out, but in some ways, and I just want to say assimilate to the culture, but at least be able to assimilate to the point where you can communicate and, get around and get the things that you need.
Right.
Your take.
Well, that's a interesting perspective, because I agree that you should retain your culture. But I don't think it's a fair thing for companies to adapt to those cultures, because those cultures are a family-based, thing. It should be kept within the family.
Okay.
And as society, I feel that it makes us, I don't want to say look weak, but it puts a handicap to the entire society, where we can't come together as one. Have an official language.
Okay.
And companies are doing this because they need the cheap labor. I mean, bottom line, that's what it is.
No doubt.
And I feel that they're hurting the society as a whole. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look at the immigrant status in this country, or the illegal immigrant status in this country, it has both hurt and helped California, especially California, because that's
right.
The majority of immigrants. You could say Florida and New York as well.
I would say New York probably number one, but we have a large flood because of our relation to the Mexican border, I think.
When the time came where companies needed cheap labor, by all means, let's open the borders.
Of course,
and let everyone in.
When it benefits us, of course, right? Yeah.
And now that it's hurting, because when it comes to taxes, they don't pay their taxes or whatever the case is.
Right.
Which actually most of them do, but anyways, that's another story.
Right.
Now it's hurting us, and you created this problem since the get-go.
Right.
You could have just put an established language. You could have really checked for papers, because the U.S. government, come on, to say that they can't check for papers, or right. that's complete BS.
Right.
So I have my immigrant take on it, because I was an immigrant. Well,
right.
Actually, I am an immigrant.
Yeah.
And that is my take. Mm-hmm. I do have I like keeping my culture. I root for Mexico whenever I go see them play or whatever.
Definitely not shy about that. Right?
Not at all. And, but I also understand that the U.S. is the one that has given me all these opportunities.
Right.
And
at the same time too, I do think a lot of people are definitely exploited. I mean, this is a huge. I mean, to really delve into the topic is huge. I mean, we could probably spend 2 or 3 shows just talking about labor rights, exploitation of not only immigrants here, but exploitation of other countries and natural resources, and it's really a topic that I have been, and I'm sure many people are completely just, I don't want to say ignorant as if they don't want to know, but they are ignorant to the facts of exploitation of other countries, exploitation of other countries' natural resources, something that I was definitely ignorant to until I was educated on it. And so there's definitely a lot of that, and yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's kind of tough. I mean, what do you do? I mean, if it wasn't for the exploitations, maybe our country wouldn't thrive the way it is. We wouldn't have all these opportunities. So, but do you sell your soul? At what expense? It's definitely a tough topic to deal with.
There was a study once, and don't quote me on this, but there was something to a degree.
We are taking a quote. Write this down.
It's something to the degree of an individual in the United States uses 500% more energy and resources than any individual outside of the United States.
I'd absolutely agree. Probably on an average.
That's ridiculous, man.
It is ridiculous, but I mean, to think that we are the largest consumers of energy like that, and yet we're not the most producing of fossil fuels or stuff like that. But I know there's all kinds of new natural resources. I mean, there's wells being found. There's the fracking and natural gas, all kinds of that stuff going on. But I think that's kind of getting away from our topic that we were talking about. One of the things I do, and I kind of want to jump in here because I know when I originally, we were talking about this topic for LA, there definitely, I have when I was telling you the story earlier about my uncle who had moved to Alabama for a job. And he doesn't live there anymore. He lives in Iowa now. He'll never come back. He'll come back to visit. He will never move back. Can't stand LA. Doesn't want anything to do with it. Just doesn't like it here for reasons that I don't want to talk about because maybe it's some What are some of the things? Is there anything that you dislike about living in LA? And I don't want to say hate because we don't want to promote hate. I'm definitely not a hater. I know you're not a hater. But are there things that definitely annoy you or aggravate you about living in LA?
Traffic. I cannot stand traffic.
It's kind of the go-to, right? Everybody hates the traffic.
And it bothers me so much to see so much construction going on in the freeways.
Okay.
And, I know it's necessary. Mm-hmm. But, Orange County got it right. San Francisco got it right. They built their freeways wide a long, long time ago because
Well, not Orange County per se. I mean, they definitely were later more developed. I think they definitely learned from LA's mistakes and when they developed those freeways. I think I would say that. But San Francisco, definitely older city. 49er days. Pioneering days. In the late 1800s. Yeah. So how did LA miss it?
I don't know, man. That's definitely one thing that if I moved out of LA, that's one thing I would not miss.
Although I'm kind of embarrassed to admit it because I'm sure I'm gonna go. My wife watches this, so she's gonna say, "Well, there's this, and this." And she's a geography major. She looks at sociological geography aspects, and so I'm sure she's gonna school me on it after she watches this.
Bernice, if you're watching this, I want you to type comments on our errors.
Definitely, please. We need more comments.
Okay, so another thing that I dislike about LA is actually we're kind of talking about it, the whole superficial, the whole, if you're the man or the woman with the money, then you're looked at as, oh, what a great person, as opposed to, I think LA lacks humility.
Yes and no. I think because I think, well, let's look at it this way. When we look at the people with the higher or the most amount of money, they're always referred to as the 1%. They're definitely the minority, but they've got a boatload of money, right? So they do control a lot of things. But I think that because there's such a larger majority of people without wealth, that there is a lot of humility. But I think because of the way, and I don't necessarily want to blame it on our culture. Maybe it's media. Maybe it's people in other parts of the country that kind of revel in the limelight of LA and Hollywood and the culture, that there's definitely a lifting up or posterizing or a podiumizing, lift them up on a higher platform of, Hollywood and people of money and wealth. Because, a lot of people are definitely very superficial, materialistic. It's nice to have nice things, and especially when we look at advertising, that's what we're shown.
Well, that's kind of what I meant by the lack of humility, though, because I've seen. And there's been a whole bunch of memes on Facebook on this. It's like, there's this one that says, a girl's telling her boyfriend, "Oh, you can't take me to a $200 date, but you for sure can spend $200 on the new Jordans." And that's what I'm talking about. Like,
Okay.
The appearance of money is so important to people.
I agree. Yeah.
And that's what I mean by the lack of humility. It's like, who cares about, the new Jordans?
Right.
They're great shoes. I'm not dissing the Jordans, but, if you can't afford them, don't get the shoes,
Right. No, I agree. But it is, it is a status thing. It is, people want to have the fresh things. I hate to use the cliche of keeping up with the Jones, but it is definitely in that sense. And I travel a lot for work. I'm on the freeways a lot of the time, and one of the newer I think trends I'm seeing is people are kind of getting away from the Bentleys and the Ferraris. Like the hot car right now, if you have money, is a Maserati, because it's not the Ferrari. It's the anti. It's an Italian car, but it's kind of anti-Ferrari. It's a little bit different. And so people who are definitely like, well, I don't drive a Ferrari, I drive a Maserati. I don't know, because I don't talk to these people, but this is just kind of like the persona, the image that they're giving off. And there's definitely a lot of that culture, and I think that culture definitely gets more recognition around here because that's what people want to see. I think that's what people want to see. That's what gets the ratings.
So now I have to get rid of my Ferrari and I have to go get a Maserati. Then.
Absolutely. I'll take it off your. I'll give you a real cheap price for that Ferrari. No doubt about it at all. I agree with you, especially for me being on the road. I know you're on the road too for work. The traffic is definitely a pain in the butt, but I don't mind it so much. I'll be honest with you. I listen to a lot of talk radio while I'm in the car, and it really helps the time go by pretty fast. Most of the time I'll find when I get to my stop, I'll sit in there for an extra 10, 15 minutes because I want to finish, the point that, the hosts are making before, they get to the commercial break. So I definitely do enjoy my time in the car, but being in other parts of the country and riding on the freeways and hearing people say, "Oh man, look at this traffic," and what traffic? There's like maybe 20 cars around us. We're still moving at 25, 30 miles an hour. And I was like, you want to see traffic? You come sit in gridlock where you don't move for 5 minutes. You just sit there, and that's traffic. So, so I know definitely people who move here. The traffic is absolutely horrendous. I don't mind it so much. You find your ways to get around it, and I think when you find your ways to get around it, you find some of those hidden gems, some of those different parts of the city. Speaking of that, I do want to tell you about this place. I'm not paid, but I'm not paid to promote this place. I found a fantastic food place, and I don't want to say it's a hidden gem because it's definitely got some publicity, but I had never heard of it anywhere. I just happened to stumble upon it. I was in Monterey Park, and it was lunchtime. I was looking for something to eat and just looked on Yelp really quick, and I was right across the street from this place. So I said, "Oh, it's got great ratings." It had a ton of reviews, and it had almost 5 stars. It was like 4.5 stars. So really good reviews. So I said, "Okay, I've got to check this place out." And it was a torta place.
Oh, nice!
Right in Monterey Park. The place is called Cook's Tortas. It's in Monterey Park. It's on Atlantic, maybe a mile or two north of the 60 freeway, and I try to find the best sandwiches in LA. I love sandwiches. I love Langer's. I love Philippe's. I love lots of different little sandwich places.
Have you been to Earl Sandwich?
I do. I love Earl of Sandwich. Great sandwich place. Yeah, definitely.
What did you think when they brought it to Disneyland, to downtown?
I'd never been there before. It had been at downtown Disney. So when I went there, I said, "Wow, this place is great," and it was very affordable. I don't know where the original one is.
Oh, it's in Vegas.
Oh, get out of here! Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. No, never had it before.
Okay.
But I do have a great sandwich place in Vegas too.
That's
not out here. But Cook's Tortas. in Monterey Park. And the first time I had it, I had a sandwich. It's called the Mocajete. Amazing.
Oh, I know exactly what that is.
Amazing spot. Definitely recommend it. If you haven't been there, you've got to try it. I mean, I've had a couple things on the menu. Certain things are better than others, but I definitely haven't had anything bad. I recommend it. And those are kind of some of my hidden gems in LA are definitely the food spots. But what about you? I mean, hidden gems, anything, food place, music place, hiking. I know you just said you're not really into the hiking thing, but is there a place that you could definitely recommend to our viewers that maybe a lot of people don't know about?
Actually, I was about to. We have about 10 minutes left of the show, and I wanted to talk about the places that we both have been to that we would recommend, and especially when it came to food, because culturally speaking, LA has everything to offer.
Right.
So I have two places that are hidden gems. One is in Cerritos, I believe, and it's called Thai Villa.
Thai Villa?
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't heard of it.
Do you like Thai food?
Love Thai food.
Thai food is like one of my, right next to Mexican food. Because they're so similar. And that place serves the best Thai food. I always get the. I forget the name of the dish, but it's that meat, it's red meat with broccoli.
Okay.
And it's got noodles on it, and it's just beyond delicious. So that's place number one.
Okay.
Place number two is also another Thai food place, and it's actually here in the city of Downey.
Okay.
And it's called Nadai Thai.
Nadai Thai.
Yeah.
I've heard of it.
It's right off of Old River School Road in Firestone.
Okay.
And best Thai food place.
Really?
Yeah, those two places are
because
delicious.
When we get Thai, we usually do either South Pacific or Sizzling Thai because those are kind of close to where we are.
Okay, I've actually been to South Pacific. I'm not.
South Pacific's right here on Paramount, and then Sizzling Thai is over on Stewart and Gray.
Yeah. South Pacific, I'm not a big fan of it. I've had it; it's good, but
it's not bad.
Yeah,
I like the red wine chicken.
Yeah.
That's really good.
And then when it comes to Mexican food, to top it off, I want to say that the best place I've been to is the place we went to. It was Olvera Street.
Right.
And it was called the Cafe something.
Okay.
And that place, it was just delicious.
I will say this about Mexican food. I love Mexican food. And I've had Mexican food a lot of different places, mostly fast food, but I've had a lot of sit-down places too. Ever since I've met my wife, I mean, nothing compares to my mother-in-law's home cooking or my wife's home cooking, for that matter. Some things my wife actually makes better than my mother-in-law, but she's definitely improved on some of the recipes. But as far as home cooking is concerned, if anybody has a chance out there to have like authentic, homemade Mexican cooking, from whatever part of Mexico, I don't care where it is, and every town, little village kind of does it a little bit different. The food is just fantastic. It's absolutely amazing. There's definitely a hidden place, and I wanted to bring it up, but I'm mad at myself. Oh, I just remembered the name of it. Okay, it's in LA. It's called El Cid. Have you ever heard of El Cid?
It sounds very familiar.
El Cid, you would drive by it 100 times and probably miss it. You may recognize a sign, but you wouldn't think anything of it. It just looks like it's like a old, very, very old yellow sign, black lettering, and it just looks like it's kind of fenced off, so you can't even really see the building. Well, when you go in like the gate, it kind of looks like a Pueblo style, older Mexican housing kind of style. You actually go down and there's like a courtyard, and it's like and then there's a building. And you sit there, and the food is amazing. Fantastic food, Mexican food, El Cid, Mexican food. But while you're eating, they do a show, and it's I'm trying to get the word, the folklorico dancing.
Okay.
So it's
That's
outstanding.
Yeah,
so you get a show while you're doing it. The dancing's amazing. The dancers are great. The food is outstanding. Definitely expensive.
Is that mariachi and folklorico, or just the folklorico?
Just the folklorico.
Okay,
I'm sure I probably still said it wrong, but I do appreciate the dancing. It's great. No live bands, no mariachi or anything like that. Okay. Maybe they do sometimes on Sundays or something like that. I don't know, but not while I was there. But just absolutely a fantastic place to go. Small, definitely got to make reservations. Small little place, but a good spot to go.
There's actually a place. Their food is not that great. Because their food is good, but it's just like 3 items on the menu.
Okay.
But the reason people go there, it's because of the mariachi.
Okay.
Mariachi. show, and it's called La Fonda. I don't know if you've been there.
No.
It's in L.A.
Okay.
Very, very good. They have like some of the top mariachis go and perform there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty pricey too. So I just thought of it because you were mentioning the El Cid.
El Cid, definitely. But before we go, one of the things I do like to is in LA. I think we talked sports before. I'm a big sports fan. I know you're a big sports guy. We don't necessarily share the same particular sport that we have interest in, but I know we're both fans of everything. But one of the things I do love about LA is we have the Los Angeles Dodgers here, and the Dodgers, one of the older baseball franchises, obviously going back to the Brooklyn days. They've only been here in LA since 58, I think, 59, when they started playing in the Coliseum. I could be off there. I'm sure somebody's going to, Dodger enthusiasts are going to crucify me for it. But the stadium itself is one of the things I've appreciated. I think that's part of one of the other things I love about LA. It's not just related to the stadium, and I'm going to connect it for you right now. But Dodger Stadium is very old and nostalgic, kind of like Wrigley Field, kind of like Fenway Park in Boston. I know a lot of people, a lot of true baseball enthusiasts were really upset when Yankee Stadium was renovated. Actually, they tore it down and built a new Yankee Stadium.
Wasn't the Dodger Stadium just renovated?
Yes, it was renovated, but it was the same stadium. They just made some upgrades to it to make it, I think, a little bit more safer, to add a little bit more fanfare stuff to it. But, I mean, the heart of that stadium, the guts of it, is still very much the same. I mean, it's implanted there in Chavez Ravine. There's a lot of history to that. I don't know if it's eminent domain or what it was, but I don't know if you know the history behind Dodger Stadium. The residents of Chavez Ravine there were actually kicked out. They actually were evicted from their homes with no warning, and just so they could build the stadium there. So as much as I love the Dodgers, it kind of hurts that there is definitely that kind of injustice going on.
They didn't pay them? They just kicked. Wow.
Said, yeah, done. And I don't know enough about the actual story behind it, but I kind of just know that little bit about it. But nonetheless, just being a sports fan, I love the history behind it. And now that I've had a chance to go in and within the LA, the heart of downtown, I don't know if you get into downtown very much into the buildings, but the architecture. The architecture of LA is just absolutely amazing. I mean, I don't know anything about art. I don't know anything about architecture, but all I know is that when I walk into some of these buildings, you feel the history, and the time era is definitely not of this era. I mean, they just don't build buildings like that anymore. And when you walk in, it's absolutely amazing. And I love that there's still some of that history of LA that's still in and within it. And it's just absolutely fantastic. If you don't, I definitely encourage you to walk within some of those buildings sometimes. And it may be the one you least expect. I mean, and shoot, I walked into a Chase Bank, but you could see, I mean, the detail in the ceiling and the pillars and the walls. There was just stuff that you don't see.
I went to DJ at the Athletic Gentlemen's Club.
Okay.
And it's not that kind of gentleman's
I was going to say, what kind of gentleman's club you go into?
But, I thought like, oh, it's going to be some type of gym or something.
Okay.
And it's actually a beautiful building. It was in the center of downtown LA, and I was just amazed. I was completely amazed. And basically what they do is it's a club for just rich people. And I think it's male only. And I was just beyond amazed with that place. So, yeah, I totally agree with you when it comes to the whole architecture. You see things like that, and it wows you. And
absolutely.
Like, wow.
So if you, because I know we're running short on time here, if you had no choice, you were being evicted, you had to leave LA, anywhere particularly that you've been, or necessarily maybe somewhere you haven't been, where you would like to relocate yourself?
If I was being evicted, I would... that's a tough question. Let's say something happened and I had to move away from like the United States.
Major earthquake, everything. The state of California falls off into the ocean, but you happen to be doing a show in Vegas, and now you got to relocate yourself. Where do you go?
I would go back to Mexico City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow, that's great. I've never been.
It's
I know it's a huge metropolitan city. It's. I don't know that it's very much like LA, because I know LA has a lot of Hispanic, population. But I know it's not, some small town. It's like a major metropolitan area.
What about you?
Tough call. I mean, Hawaii, obviously, I think would be great to go. I've never been to Texas. I've been to the South. I've been to Alabama. I've been to Georgia. I've been to Tennessee. I've been to different parts of the South. But I think I would feel at home in Texas. I definitely love and appreciate the Southern hospitality. I know it's a term, and it is very real. Southern hospitality, I mean, there's nothing like it. I mean, the people are just so genuine and genuinely nice. They're really, really nice people. I mean, obviously, you're always going to get haters, I think, anywhere you go. But I think I could definitely find a place to settle somewhere in Texas. I think would be nice. I mean, Texas does it big, so maybe not too different from LA, but there's definitely a nice, Southern, homey feeling about it.
Yeah, I've heard some great things about Texas. I have a couple of friends that moved over there and started their own business over there, and it's just a growing culture and economy. So yeah, that's a good call.
Definitely not a bad call, I don't think.
But all right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Emix Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is my co-host,
Jason.
That's right. Catch us every single Monday, same time, same channel. See you guys next time.
Be good.